One. So thank you. We're testing sound testing and making sure that everything is working as we hope to. So, dear guests, dear soon-to-be panel, most welcome to this. Speak louder. Is this better? Is this better? Okay. So, dear guests and dear soon-to-be panel here in the chairs, most welcome to this closing session of today, the thematic day here in the Water for Climate Pavilion called that we named locally led adaptation. And in this high-level panel, we will reflect on this day that showed us the nuts and bolts of locally led adaptation. And I mean this wholeheartedly, and as whole, while today focused on the local and urban level, we had speakers from the local level to the national and international level, coming from private, public, and intergovernmental sectors. So we've really had a cross-sectoral dialogue here in a matrix from international, global to local level. But today was not only about urban initiatives and their intersection and at multi-levels of governance. We heard about the catalyzing of capacity, finance, water recycling, and breaking down silos as we holistically, long-term look at finance instead of project-based finance. These topics stands not only for new approaches, but also a paradigm shift in how we conceptualize adaptation and, importantly, make it locally led. In light of this push for multi-level governance and water smart cities, I'm more than happy to introduce our amazing final panel and wide spectrum of sectors coming from the state of Rio, Mr. Tiago, let me say it right now, so I do it right, Pampolla, Tiago Pampolla, the Honorable Vice Governor of Rio de Janeiro. We have, please come and have a seat. We have a seat for you over there. And Mr. Andrei Zigus, Chief of Urban Basic Service Section, United Nations Human Settlements Program, UN Habitat. Please, can I have you here? And last but not least, EU, Miss Aurelia Godefroy, Aurel Godefroy, Deputy Head of Unit, European Union, European Commission, Director General for International Partnerships at the Unit of Environment, Sustainable Natural Resources, and of course, water. So most welcome. I'm going to be a little bit emotional before we start, because today something happened, and that is very personal. You meet some people sometimes that influence you and affect your life. I had the honor to meet. Sorry, this is deep. I had the honor to sit down and talk to Malin Falkenmark. One of the instrumental people we know about in the water sector. She is a professor, and she was the founder, or you could say the maker of us understanding green water, soil water. She became 98 years on the 21st of November, and sadly passed away today. But I'm crying a little bit, but I'm also very honored to have met her, and I think we should celebrate what she achieved and what she brought to us, because the knowledge and the recognizing of soil-bounded water is instrumental in everything we do today when it comes to agriculture, forestry, landscaping, etc., etc., etc. And it's instrumental for biodiversity and the ecosystems. So I just want to acknowledge that, and let you know that we will do a much more dignified, honorable session tomorrow, or time for her at 1 o'clock here in the Water Pavilion, where we will show her last interview from this summer, and also talk a little bit about Malin's work and what she contributed with in a more detailed way. But I'm sorry for doing this, but I think it's good to honor and acknowledge the people who actually has influenced what we do on a daily basis here and everywhere else. So with that, and sorry, the panel, I would like to start with EU. With regard to the EU's water activities for advancing climate adaptation, particularly in urban context, could you elaborate on what types of initiatives and financial resources EU offers? You will have a microphone. Sorry, I'm still...
Thank you very much, Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to be here with you today. And let me start, of course, by the obvious. We're here because there's a clear link between water and climate, and this is very clear in this COP. And this, of course, has clear impact on our resilience. It's true even more, maybe, for the urban areas. And of course, we have solutions in adaptation, in reducing the risk of floods, in better managing water resources, but also in working on improving infrastructure and green infrastructure like Sponges City, for example. So solutions are here. But we really need to look at comprehensive responses. And this is why, as part of the European Union, we have launched something called Team Europe. And Team Europe is our comprehensive response to the water-related issues. And basically, we are pooling together EU member states with all their knowledge and expertise, but also with their finance, to provide comprehensive answers to the needs. And this is very important. And we've launched several Team Europe initiatives in the areas of adaptation, but also in the area of water. So one of the big ones that you may know is our Team Europe initiative on climate adaptation in Africa, where we managed to reach 1 billion, basically to support government in Africa on governance, on policies, on capacity building, but also on resilience and risk management, which is very important for the water sector. We also have another Team Europe initiative that is linked to water, which is actually focusing on transboundary water management in Africa. And second one, which is actually covering Central Asia and looking at the nexus between climate, water, and energy. And this one, with this one, we are also reaching 1 billion, 1.1 actually, with the two Team Europe initiative, covering 47 countries and 18 basins. So this is one way we approach the issue, looking at how we can pool our resources and expertise to bring the answer. Of course, looking at the financial resources, this is a big issue at COP as well. And we know that there is a big gap in meeting Target 6. So we know about the figures, 124 billion gap that was identified by World Bank. And we know that this is not the end because pressure on waters are increasing. And so for that, we realized, of course, that public money will not be enough. And a way that we could bring our input is basically to look at how we use our ODA, our development assistance, to leverage additional funds from the private sector, from the development banks. And this is why we have created the European Sustainable Development Fund Plus. This is in EFSD Plus. And with this tool, we can do some blending and also guarantees. And basically with those elements, we can leverage additional funds, either from the banks or from the private sector. So this has been quite successful. We have specific windows or specific focus on water. And we have earmarked 300 million that could mobilize 2.5 billion of action. And one example I want to give is the Urban Water Catalyst Initiative, where basically we are gathering forces with Germany and the Netherlands. And this fund will have 112 million, and it will focus on improving the performance of utilities. And this is, we believe this is very important. So to make them more viable and more attractive, and this will have a key role in mobilizing additional finance. So I'll stop here for this question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. If I would continue and go a little bit more into detail, how does EU support, and this may be connected to what you just said, but how does the EU support water and sanitation service providers in developing and implementing climate resilient water management systems? Are there specific programs or initiatives supported to transform capacities in this regard?
Yeah. Well, it's true that expertise is a very important element. We see it all along the chain, but there's a very well identified lack of expertise in the sector for various reasons, and a strong need to build capacity. We've seen that in some countries the workforce is getting older. We see that it's a sector that doesn't attract women enough. And we would like to also work in this sector to bring a younger and a more diverse workforce. And I would like maybe to mention two programs that we have that are focusing on that, just to illustrate. The first one is the EU Water Operator Partnership Program. It's an important one because it also focuses on the utilities and the performance, social, environmental, and financial, but looking also at the aspect of staff skills. And it's a program through which we are putting in relation utilities from the north and the south, so it can be north-south or south-south cooperation, basically with the idea of increasing exchange of practices, building knowledge, sharing concern, learning from each other, basically to build cooperation across borders. So this is a very important program. We have, it's implemented by UN Habitat and GOPA, and currently with 9 million. And of course, you know the good news that we are expanding it with 14 additional million. Of course, this is not enough because we need to look at advocacy and raising awareness. We see that there's still a bit of stigma in would you like to work in utilities? You know, some of the young people are not too attracted by this this perspective. And so we've been also working on a nice movie, also together with UN Habitat and GOPA, that was presented actually at the UN Water Conference. And with this movie, we tell a story of young people that are facing difficulties, challenges, but at the same time that are telling a positive story of commitment, of innovation. And so there's testimony in this movie which are really touching of 4 young people from Africa. I really invite you to look at it. It's called Water Generation, Young Professionals Shaping the Future. So this is also the way we see it, so through the young generation and building partnership with all of you, looking at building capacities, using our funds to mobilize additional resources. This is the way we would like to continue. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So moving over to you, André. If we look into UN Habitat, and you had a nice segue there from. So what are UN Habitat strategies for ensuring inclusive engagement and local governments and communities in urban water resilience and climate change adaptation goals? Or efforts, sorry.
Thanks a lot, Thomas, and thanks a lot for this opportunity. And first of all, apologies for our executive director. She couldn't manage with the competing commitments. I oversee at UN Habitat our work on urban basic services, so globally, which covers our work on water, sanitation, waste management, energy, and also transportation. And we heard from the EU about the video on women in the water and sanitation sector, which was actually launched during the UN 2023 Water Conference. I think the DG of EU was also there. I was also there, and the video was truly impressive to see how young female professionals can actually progress in the water sector. I myself have been in the water sector for the last 33 years. And I also met Malin Falkenmark at many, many occasions at the Stockholm Water Symposium, and must say, very impressive. I think she was a great leader and is a very inspiring person for other females actually to move into the water sector. So let me get back to your question on how we are dealing with local authorities and communities inclusion. Of course, UN Habitat itself is an agency which is mandated by the General Assembly to work with cities and local authorities. And the other unique thing is, I was asked earlier where I'm from, and I said I'm from Kenya, because we have our world headquarters not in New York, not in Geneva, and not in Vienna, where all the other UN agencies are headquartered, but we have our world headquarters in Nairobi, in Kenya, together with UNEP, the United Nations Environment Programme. And the mandate which we have in dealing with cities and how to address water is coming through the new urban agenda, which was adopted in Quito in 2016, and give very clear guidance on how we all should be engaging in water and sanitation at city level. And of course also SDG 11 linked to SDG 6. So seeing that SDG 11 and the new urban agenda provides an opportunity for localizing SDG 6. And as a background, we have our Global Water Operators Partnerships Office based in Alliance Office based in Bonn in Germany. The history of this program actually goes back to an advisory group to the Secretary General Kofi Annan, where actually the Prince of Orange, at that time now the King of the Netherlands, recommended the creation of a Water Operators Partnerships Alliance, and UN Habitat was requested to host this GWOPER office. So that is one of our ways of how we, as a UN agency, engage with local authorities and communities is through water operators, which are located at the city level. What GWOPER does, it partners and it twins utilities so that utilities in the north or utilities in the south can actually partner and exchange and build capacity amongst themselves through south-south partnerships, through north-south partnerships, but also through triangular partnerships in improving the capacity of the utilities, to improving the performance of utilities, and then working with utilities in developing performance improvement plans. So the idea of the EU of having a grant funding of 300 million, which will result in 2 billion of investments, is very much based on an approach which we're also trying to promote at GWOPER, is to have these WOPs where we partner with utilities, do the performance improvement plans, and then see how the utilities can actually generate investments into the utility. And we have examples of having worked with the European Investment Bank in Mwanza in Tanzania with the utility, where we have built capacity in the utility, and this then resulted in a $2 million loan to the Mwanza utility through the European Investment Bank, and other examples from the African Development Bank. And as GWOPER is also located in Bonn, we are working closely with BMZ, the government of Netherlands, on the Urban Water Catalyst Fund to see how the concept of WOPs, of the partnering of WOPs, can actually support the Water Catalyst Fund in building capacity in utilities. So that's one of the examples of how we engage with the local authorities, but also with the communities. Now, in many cities around the world, there are the formal water providers, which are the utilities, and then there are the so-called informal water providers. You might know that in many places in countries, 50% sometimes of the populations live in slums and squatter settlements. And the formal water utilities do not provide services to the slum and squatter settlement residents. So residents organize themselves and have their own independent water supply system. So what we're also doing is to ensure that utilities, like in the National Water and Sewerage Corporation in Uganda, that they actually have a program of linking the utility to the low-income settlements so that they can provide bulk water to the slum area or can extend the services to the slum and low-income area. So that is how we engage with communities to see that the official or the formal water providers have the capacity to engage with the low-income communities and the low-income settlements. So this is just an example of how we engage through GWOPER in working at the local level, but also working with the communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, André. You almost answered the whole second question I had for you, but
More responses.
a good and long response. I think it was very good and comprehensive and needed. But when we look at the marginalized communities, if we take it up a level, how do you integrate those policies? You said that you work together with local utilities, but there's some pre-work before you reach to an agreement or to a settlement with that kind of operators. How do you work to sort of integrate these overarching strategies into so it also reaches in the end the local communities?
So one of the biggest challenge with low-income settlements, of course, is that residents do not have security of tenure. They are informal. So as part of our slum upgrading programs, which we implement, one of the first strategies is to see that there is some form of security of tenure, because with the security of tenure, also financing can be mobilized for these communities. So recognizing that communities are formal and getting the security of tenure, which will then also result that the people themselves can invest into better housing, and of course also into water supply and sanitation. The moment low-income settlement or a slum receives security of tenure, then the water utility also has the mandate to actually provide water and sanitation services. And very often we see that people who live in slums and squatter settlements actually pay 10 times more for their water when they use informal systems than when they are actually connected to the formal system. So it is really important to make sure that the formal system can be extended to the low-income settlements and low-income communities.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for adding that. And over to you, Mr. Vice Governor of Rio, Tiago Pampolha. I hope I said it right. Yeah, they're nodding.
Muito
So,
bem.
excuse me. Zooming into a city, a major city with at least 13 million inhabitants, and some favelas that has a lot of also of this not in the planned infrastructure settlements. In managing the challenges of climate change, how has the government of Rio leveraged local knowledge, resources and community participations to enhance the resilience of water services?
Bom, eu vou falar em português, então talvez, não sei se todos têm a tradução. Como é que tá?
Yeah. So,
Sim.
Coisa melhor, né? É mais fácil, mais fácil, tem razão.
yeah.
Pode falar lá no abril.
Então, acho que assim fica um pouco mais fácil. Meu amigo vai ajudando aqui na tradução, tá? Da minha breve explanação. Queria agradecer a presença de todos, agradecer, né, aqui os nossos panelistas, né, o André, o moderador Thomas, né, agradecer Aurélie, Godefroy, dizer da importância de trazer esse tema para que a gente possa discutir aqui, para apresentando os desafios locais do Estado do Rio de Janeiro, também entendendo o que está sendo desenvolvido aqui pela União Europeia, né, pela ONU, para internalizar em termos de políticas públicas, tanto visando a parte social, ambiental e econômica.
Thank you so much for the invitation today. I'm the Vice Governor of Rio, and I'd like to, well, as I said, thank you, my colleagues André, Thomas, and Aurélie for being here today. It's important to discuss these issues, to also discuss the challenges that we are facing in our country. And also it's good to know about the development programs in the EU, development programs by the UN to develop public policies in terms of social, financial, and such projects?
Bom, o Brasil é um grande produtor mundial de água, seja águas dos seus mananciais ou até das águas subterrâneas. 13,7% das águas dos mananciais em relação ao cenário mundial e 20% de águas subterrâneas do mundo. Então, acho que nós prestamos um grande serviço para o planeta, na medida em que a gente produz água em abundância, em qualidade, e também exportamos isso de várias formas, seja de forma direta ou através dos nossos produtos ou dos nossos, enfim, nossos produtos agrícolas ou industriais. Tudo isso chega no mundo através dessa produção que nós temos como predicado natural do Brasil.
So Brazil is one of the main producers of and exporters of water. We get the water from the lakes present in Brazil. Our exports from the lakes in Brazil account for 7% of the exports of water across the world, and we also provide 20% of underground water to the world. And this shows the relevance of our services being provided. And when it comes to exports, the exports can be direct exports or even agricultural and industrial products.
Bom, muito importante, depois disso, a gente falar um pouco do Rio de Janeiro, da realidade do nosso estado. É um estado que tem um sistema de gestão de recursos hídricos muito moderno, muito eficiente, que se assemelha aos grandes sistemas mundiais, como existe hoje na França, que é baseado nos comitês de bacias, que enfim, que representa as regiões, representa um pouco da visão da indústria, através dos seus usuários da água, que representa a visão da sociedade civil organizada e dos governos, seja nas instâncias municipais, estaduais e locais. Em cada região hidrográfica existe um comitê que junta toda essa sistemática, que junta todos esses atores para discutir as melhores implementações de políticas públicas e os melhores investimentos, tanto privados quanto públicos.
In Rio State, we have our own water management system, and they equal the most modern water management systems, like the system that you have in France, that develops a kind of basin-related committee. And this committee represents the different regions, the different industries, and it also accounts for the water users at the municipal level, for example, and at the different levels. And this basin-related committee is very relevant for the implementation of our public policies.
Bom, nós temos no Estado um programa de segurança hídrica que tem no seu cardápio de ações mais de 2 bilhões de investimentos públicos e privados. E esse programa de segurança hídrica visa fazer um diagnóstico do Estado do Rio de Janeiro em tudo que se refere à temática da água, em todas as suas nuances, seja para a parte de qualidade ambiental da água, seja no aspecto do abastecimento, tanto um abastecimento humano quanto um abastecimento industrial, visando o desenvolvimento econômico do Estado do Rio de Janeiro, também passando pelos riscos climáticos associados à água. Tudo que envolve a temeridade que é, dentro de uma comunidade, dentro de uma favela, as pessoas vivendo na realidade que vivem, submetidas aos riscos climáticos que hoje ainda assolam e preocupam a todos nós.
So there is a water-related safety and security program, and we have invested over 2 billion reais in this program, and these investments come from both from the public and the private sectors, and this program aims at diagnosing the situation in Rio. So it's basically all the industries related to water. We also assessed the environmental quality of water. We also assess the water supply systems, as well as there is an assessment for the development, for the financial and economic development. But we also assess the the water-related risks. We also assess the threats that the slums are facing in Brazil, as well as any other environmental risks.
E eu queria trazer aqui alguns exemplos de ações concretas que o governo do Estado do Rio de Janeiro implementou e que hoje traz de uma forma muito palpável o retorno para a população. A gente pode citar aqui o fim da geosmina. A geosmina é algo que assolava o Rio de Janeiro, que preocupava sempre que chegava o período de verão, onde havia muito calor, onde há muito calor e, portanto, as águas, né, tinham essa predominância dessa microalga que deixava cheiro e gosto ruim na água. E, a partir do investimento do governo do Estado, numa parceria da SEDAI, nossa companhia de água e esgoto, juntamente com a Secretaria de Estado do Ambiente, que eu hoje sou secretário, disponibilizamos investimentos robustos que colocaram fim nessa preocupação da geosmina no Rio de Janeiro. Hoje já são 3 verões consecutivos sem incidência de geosmina na água, e isso é, sem dúvida nenhuma, um grande case de sucesso de parceria no estado do Rio de Janeiro.
So the geosmina a geosmina dá gosto estranho na água, é isso que eu tinha pensado, mas não tinha a certeza. So I'd like to illustrate some of the examples that I could provide you with and the specific actions that we have carried out in Rio to be able to give something back to the population. And there is the issue of geosmina that, as we were saying, it gives a bad taste in water. And it's an issue in Brazil in summer, especially when it gets really warm. The water taste changes and it's a bad taste because of the impact of this geosmina on micro water. And the Rio State has made many investments in the water supply company and in the environmental secretariat. So we have invested and we have managed to end the issue of geosmina, this bad taste of water, and we have been successful for the last 3 summers in a row.
Bom, e outro exemplo, bem rapidamente, é um programa chamado Sanear Guandu. Sanear Guandu é um programa de saneamento em áreas rurais e periurbanas no estado do Rio de Janeiro, que nós já investimos uma soma de 60 milhões de reais, que visa trazer mais qualidade de vida e saúde para a população do território rural no estado do Rio de Janeiro. E só com esses investimentos nós já garantimos uma queda de carga orgânica chegando nos principais mananciais do estado em 17%.
And another program, another example is the water sanitation program that is addressed to rural areas, but also to peripheral areas or the outskirts of cities. We have made an investment of 60 million reais to improve the quality of water and to improve health. And by doing this, we have managed to improve the organic load in water by 17%.
Queria trazer também uma parceria estratégica do Rio de Janeiro com a OCDE, que hoje traz a visão da economia azul para o estado do Rio de Janeiro, entendendo que nós temos mais de 600 quilômetros de costa e que nós temos essa vocação do desenvolvimento a partir do conhecimento da costa marinha do nosso estado, das potencialidades da costa marinha do nosso estado, seja do ponto de vista ambiental e também econômico. Então, hoje, essa parceria com a CDE visa instituir no Rio de Janeiro a Metrópole Azul. É um programa das cidades azuis, né, no caso do Rio de Janeiro, a Metrópole Azul, tendo como foco, né, os municípios, o desenvolvimento da economia azul nos municípios, sobretudo os municípios com essa predominância de recursos hídricos, do oceano, do mar. Então, esse é um foco importante do governo do Estado, que eu gostaria de mencionar.
And we have also developed a strategic partnership with the OECD for the Blue Economy Initiative. And we have over 600 kilometers of shore in the Rio state, and we want to make many developments based on the knowledge about our shores in the Rio state for development initiatives in terms of environmental and financial endeavors. So there is such a partnership together with the OECD for the so-called blue cities, and we will be focusing on developing municipalities, and we will then, with this partnership, develop our water resources on the shore.
Bom, outra vertente importante do Estado é o investimento em saneamento direto, não só no território rural, mas no Estado como um todo, endereçado especificamente para o território mais populoso do Estado, onde reúne cerca de 1.500 favelas, onde existe cerca de 80% da população do Estado, e nós fizemos um arranjo regional, né, hoje um bloco de municípios que se juntaram e formaram uma espécie de coalizão pelo saneamento, o Estado liderando esse processo, e nós hoje temos a perspectiva de sanear o Estado do Rio de Janeiro, de resolver a coleta e o tratamento de esgoto em 90% até 2033 e a oferta hídrica para toda a população em 99% até 2033, atingindo aí 22 municípios da região metropolitana do Estado.
And we are also making direct sanitation investments because, as you may know, over 1,500 favelas are present in our state. And therefore, we have developed a regional agreement, basically with some municipalities, to be able to improve their sanitation systems. We basically want to improve the sanitation system as a whole, but basically we want to develop a better water sewage system by 2033. We aim at reaching 90% of the municipalities in Rio State.
Bom, já me alonguei, já falei mais do que eu deveria, mas eu queria de verdade encerrar falando de um orgulho do Estado, que recentemente nós firmamos uma parceria com a ONU Habitat, visando instituir os ODS nos 92 municípios do Estado do Rio de Janeiro e focando no plano de resiliência em 8 cidades que têm um histórico de inundações, de enchentes que realmente preocupam todo o verão. Então, nós temos esse foco aí nessas 8 cidades, onde a ONU Habitat, junto conosco, está desenvolvendo esse trabalho. E, sem dúvida nenhuma, isso vai trazer alento e tranquilidade para essa população que sofre muito com os efeitos das mudanças climáticas.
And I know that I have spoken for a long time, but I'd like to mention our collaboration, our partnership together with UN Habitat in terms of the SDGs, because we plan to implement this partnership in 92 municipalities in Rio State, and we want to have our focus on on 8 cities affected by flooding. And the situation is really bad in summer by the impact of such floodings. And as I said, we want to focus on this partnership together with UN Habitat, and I think this will bring courage, and this will encourage our population. This will help our population find hope and calm down because of this bad situation in those cities.
Bom, e para encerrar, dizer que nós estamos muito orgulhosos de poder ter implementado um programa de restauração florestal que traz o foco em segurança hídrica, em produção de água. Isso é, sem dúvida nenhuma, um orgulho do Estado do Rio de Janeiro. Hoje nós temos esse programa de restauração florestal visando áreas estratégicas de produção de água e proteção de mananciais. Temos um atlas que traz esse estudo, identificando as áreas que mais podem fazer esse serviço ecossistêmico de produção de água a serviço humano, a serviço da indústria e de todo o Estado do Rio de Janeiro. Então, falar que esse é um tópico muito importante do Estado, que nós estamos desenvolvendo. E, por fim, fechar mesmo falando de justiça climática, pensando nas favelas, que foi a primeira pergunta aqui colocada. Hoje nós temos 1.500 favelas, mais ou menos, no Estado do Rio de Janeiro, onde a população vive numa situação de muita vulnerabilidade e, portanto, nós precisamos desenvolver mecanismos de fazer a adaptação desses territórios. O Estado investe muito nisso, em obras de infraestrutura, em obras de solução baseadas na natureza, e também política habitacional, mas nós estamos ávidos por parcerias, por pessoas e instituições que possam vir a somar de forma colaborativa esforço com o Estado do Rio de Janeiro, emprestando expertise técnica, apoio institucional e também recursos para que a gente faça frente aos desafios que essa população de 17 milhões de cariocas e fluminenses hoje estão submetidos. Queria agradecer a oportunidade, parabenizar pelo encontro e me colocar à disposição de todos.
And I also would like to mention the reforestation or forest restoration programs. We want to develop the water security. We want to improve the water security and the water production. And for example, we have developed a survey to be able to identify such different ecosystem services to be able to support the population, but also the industry. And this is very important for the Rio State. And I also would like to mention the environmental justice. We mentioned in the beginning the slums, and as I told you, there are 1,500 slums in Rio State, and they are the most vulnerable communities, and we have to make developments to support such communities. We have to develop a mechanism or a facility to develop infrastructure programs, but also nature-based solutions. So we want to focus on partnerships with the population, but also together with different institutions to be able to join our efforts based on expertise, based on our resources, to be able to face all the challenges that these 70 million people face in Rio State. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Governor, Mr. Tiago Pampolha. I hope I pronounced it right now. For that, you actually, you were also, what a panel. They've all replied on my questions ahead of me asking them. So I was about to ask you about your future plans and your strategies and what actions you were about to take, and you foresee that. So thank you for replying without even having me asking it. So, and I think it's impressive what you do. You have a very different situation than many others, of course, with the special geographic location. But it is really it's really impressive what you do in the state of Rio, and I think there's reason for many to look into what you do as a thought leader and as a good example on how you can develop and meet the climate change with adaptation and also mitigation, I would say. So, dear panel, with that, we were a little bit late, but we're also a little bit with the start. We're also a little bit late with the finish. So instead of fulfilling the 60 minutes, I think we are ready for a few questions from the audience, and then we will round up. So if there's anyone in the audience who would like to ask any of the panelists a question, please, now is the opportunity. And I have a question in the far end. Do we have a microphone in the far end by the Here comes the microphone. And please introduce yourself and then place your question.
My name is Henk Holtslag from the Netherlands, and I work in many countries in Africa on capacity building. I have one observation on water quality. The sir from Brazil mentioned the water quality and treatment. Where you don't have piped system, where you don't have centralized treatment, there is a very good company in Brazil, Stephanie, that makes very good quality household water filters. So even for decentralized system and household water level, you can treat water, make water safe with a $30 water filter. So that is one option. And I had a question for the lady from the EU. So there is many technologies that you can produce locally instead of importing them. And there is a huge potential also in Africa. In one country, they have low-cost technologies for wells, for pumps, etc., which are not known in other countries. So does the EU support South-South knowledge exchange on these type of technologies? Thank you.
Okay, so we got a recommendation for the state of Rio around the good and efficient, cheap water filters for the favelas. So maybe we should move directly to you, Auriel, to reply on the question addressed. Please.
Thank you very much. And indeed, it's a good point. And just to confirm that, yes, this program is about North-South cooperation, but also South-South cooperation. And I really agree with you that there's a lot of low-cost knowledge technologies that can be scaled up or shared between countries. And so our program is also contributing to that. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have one other question, please? Let's see if we can get the microphone over there. Thank you,
Andrew. Thank you very much. My name is Johannes Runda from Namibia, south of Africa. So my question is to UN Habitat. To improve water service provision, capacity building is very critical. Now, maybe if you can share with us what are the lessons learned from the capacity building program which you have implemented with different utilities in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Please, Andre.
Thank you very much, Mr. Runda. And just to confirm, actually, UN Habitat has worked also in Namibia, in Windhoek, and we had actually facilitated a partnership with water utilities from Egypt, sharing experience in Windhoek, especially looking at the aquifer water recharging experience, which Egypt has, and how Namibia can actually apply this. And of course, also the use of treated wastewater. So for instance, Windhoek has developed a dual piping system where some of the treated wastewater is actually being used for greening, for watering the green areas in the city, just as an example. So this is just a concrete example in terms of capacity development. So what utilities do is they share experiences, they visit each other on study trips. So at that time in 1998, 2000, water operators from Namibia actually visited Egypt to see how water management is actually done in Egypt. So this is an example of capacity building and of course also partnerships between the utilities. So just as one example from your country. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. And I think 5:45, it's time to close for the day, at least for this session. There is more sessions coming. So thank you for being here, dear panel. Mr. Thiago, Oriel, and Andre, thank you for coming and sharing your knowledge and expertise with us, and also thoughts and ideas. I would suggest that we have a little photo session here. So please, if you could stand up, and the ones who wants to have a photo, now is the time.